The following program, offered by Fox 19, includes lawyers licensed in Kentucky. For those lawyers to maintain compliance with the Kentucky Bar Association requirements, the phrase, "This is an advertisement," must appear on the screen. Moore Law is underwritten in the public interest by the Moore Law Firm, a legal professional association. This is Moore Law on Fox 19.
Welcome to Moore Law. Today our topic is car and truck accidents. If you've been injured, you need to know what your rights are under the law. You also need to know when you should contact an attorney or just let your insurance company handle it. The phone lines are open. If you've been injured and don't know what to do, give us a call at 513-421-4691. Again, the phone lines are open, but let's take a look right now at what we have coming up over the next couple of weeks. On August 6th, Social Security Disability. August 13th, All About Injuries. And August 20th, Can My Boss Do That? Well, I'm here for that one. Again, I'm Deb Haas. Today we have with us Dan Moore. Your dad's out and about today.
That's right, he is.
All right. How was your weekend? You were in Chicago, I believe.
I was. It was good. Weather's a little cooler there than it is here.
It is, but I'll tell you, Saturday was a perfect day here. Got rid of some of that humidity.
Yeah, I missed that.
All right, and you wanted to introduce our guest?
I did. I'm really happy that we've got Brett Goodson here with us today. I've known Brett for a long time. He's been practicing in the Cincinnati area for over 30 years.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He is licensed in Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana.
So everybody can call.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
And we wanted to talk a little bit about some hot topics that you think are really important when it comes to driving these days.
What we're seeing right now is a lot more distracted driving. Distracted driving is something where somebody's either texting or calling or even using their Google Maps on their cell phone to try to find directions. And that taking your eye off the road for 5 or 10 seconds at a time is critical, and it's something that we actually do presentations in schools about, along with 60 for Safety and NDD.org. It's very important that people understand that that's not what to do behind the wheel of a car or a truck.
It's amazing because you think I'm just dialing a number and that's a couple seconds. Just yesterday, I saw somebody weaving everywhere, and just when I pulled up, all they were doing was dialing. It wasn't texting.
Well, the fear is that you take your eye off the road for 5 or 10 seconds to type in a number. You might weave over into the right lane, and what if there's a bicyclist there? You know, what if there's a pedestrian there? So that's the problem.
And it's not just texting or dialing, it's also messing with the radio or anything else inside the car. I was taking a deposition just last week where the person who I was deposing caused a crash because he was changing radio station, and just look down for just that brief period of time you're talking about, Brett. It can happen, and
it's just changed so much over the years, because it used to be just changing a radio station. Now it's so much you can do with a mobile device, whether it's an iPad or an iPhone or whatever you've got, that you've just got to be careful not to do it while you're driving. Pull over, and the safer people will say, "Hey, I'll pull over to get that information."
Right.
Okay. Let's go to the phones now. We have Betty in Florence. Go ahead, Betty. Go ahead, Betty. I'm sorry, we couldn't hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, my question is, a friend of mine's grandson was living in their home. He was in a car accident with another person who was charged with DUI. They're telling him that he can sue his grandparents' insurance because of living in their home. We're very concerned.
I think, who was the drunk driver? Your grandson or his friend?
It was his friend.
Well, they can't sue the grandparents if the friend didn't live with them and wasn't involved with the grandparents at all. No, if he's just a passenger in the car, he has no responsibility whatsoever, neither would his grandparents, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
In what kind of circumstance would there be some liability on, other than just the driver?
Well, generally, insurance follows the car. So if I lend my car to Dan today and say he wants to run out to his office and he has a crash in my car and he injures somebody, I'm not responsible, but my insurance will cover him because he's in my car. Generally insurance follows the car. So in your example, ma'am, if your grandson was involved and the grandparents owned the car and they insured the car, then their insurance could cover that.
Well, the other thing that happens.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing that happens sometimes is when somebody allows a drunk person or somebody who shouldn't be driving to take control of that car and go drive it. When everybody knows that that person shouldn't be driving.
Right.
That's called negligent entrustment, and then that sometimes is how you can get back to the person who owns the car. You can't just give your car to anybody to drive. You have to make sure that that person has some base level of ability to operate the car at that particular point in time.
Okay, and I think there was a graphic that you wanted to show, pictures of an accident and then some information.
Yeah, that's something that we have with us is a graphic there of a crash that we handled. This is an intersection crash on State Route 32, and I was talking to Brett before the show, and I think he and I have similar thoughts on this. Every time I see a crash like this at an intersection, I think, you know, our clients typically aren't responsible for these crashes because they don't come to us if they are responsible. But the thing I think is, you know, these can be prevented sometimes. If you're the one operating the car, when you go through an intersection, make sure everyone else is doing what they're supposed to. Sometimes you can't prevent it, but if you can just slow down a little bit, look both ways, see if somebody's going to be running that red light. That's what you want to avoid. And I know Brett's seen a bunch of those in his career, and you just wish that people could take a little bit extra caution to protect themselves.
Well, you do have to look out for the other guy. I mean, you know, they're just, you know, everybody's driving around at 60, 70 miles an hour. I mean, you have to take some responsibility to protect yourself.
And I think motorcyclists probably are best at defensive driving because they are always worried if they see somebody backing out of a driveway, they're going to slow down immediately because they're going to be afraid that they're going to back into the street. We can all do that a little bit. We can all take a little bit more time to pay attention to what's going on. It doesn't mean that, you know, when you're going through a green light, it doesn't mean you shouldn't proceed through the green light, but you might keep your eyes open, especially if it's late at night. You know, if it's after midnight, you know, chances are there are going to be worse drivers out. I hate to say it, but that's kind of the way it is.
It is.
And that seems to be what happens.
Okay, and then I think there's some things that you gentlemen want people to know, that things you should never do after a crash.
Right. There's a bunch of things you should never do, Deb, and we've kind of compiled a list here, and the one I really want to focus on is the medical treatment business. What you never want to do is refuse medical treatment if you're in pain at all. The thing that Brett and I see the most probably after car crashes that causes people a problem is when they refuse medical treatment or say at the scene that they're not injured. Typically, you don't know if you're going to be suffering any problem from that car crash until a couple days afterwards. I've got several clients who don't go to the
Don't go to the hospital
right afterwards. They don't get the ambulance to take them, and 2 days afterwards they have all kinds of problems, and sometimes they even have a surgery down the road. I know Brett's experienced that too.
Okay. All right. Well, we will be back. We are talking about car and truck accidents. We'll be back. Give us a call, 513-421-4691.
Welcome back to More Law on Fox 19, your legal questions live, with local broadcaster and award-winning reporter Deb Haas and Cincinnati personal injury attorney Don Moore, recognized by Ohio super lawyers. More answers, more help, more law on Fox 19.
Welcome back. It's time now for More Law Connection, where Dan will be answering some viewer emails. What do you have today?
Well, today we've got an email from Jennifer. She asked, I broke up with my boyfriend after he bought me a car. Do I have to give it back, or is it a gift? Well, it's one of these situations where when you have a relationship, there's gifts exchanged in a relationship. The general rule is you don't have to give the gift back. The only situation where you would, in a lot of states, including Ohio, is if it's a conditional gift, like an engagement ring, and that's usually identified as something that you are getting this engagement ring with the anticipation of getting married. As long as that's not what we're talking about here, we're just talking about a car and there's no promise, there's no condition associated with it, it's just a straight gift, that's yours, you get to keep it.
I need a boyfriend like that. I never had a boyfriend like that. I'm just kidding. Let's see, we now have Stephanie in Northern Kentucky. Stephanie, how can we help?
I was just asking a question. I've seen that we're in Kentucky and we're in a no-fault state. My son was injured. He's got glass throughout him, and basically I need to know what they need or what we need to get to the insurance to fight this, because it was the other guy's fault.
Okay. What kind of information should she have?
Was your son injured in an automobile accident, did you say?
Yeah, he's got glass throughout his body and some stitches and stuff, and they told him they couldn't pick the glass out, it'd have to work its way out.
Well, first you need to make a claim with your own insurance company. They have personal injury protection in Kentucky. It's called PIP coverage. So initially the medical bills and lost wages up to $10,000 should be paid by your own insurance company. That doesn't mean he's giving up his right to bring a claim against the party at fault. He's still able to file a lawsuit against the party that caused the injury. It's just that the $10,000 in PIP coverage is a big help if you need medical coverage right now. So the first thing for you to do is contact his insurance, whatever was insuring the car, and the second thing is don't have him give any statements to the insurance company for the other side if he gets a call from the person that caused the accident.
Okay. Is there anything you'd add to that, Dan?
You know, I think that's a good start. The other thing that I guess you can look out for is make sure that there's no serious injuries developing. If he's got serious injuries or if it looks like that he needs further medical care, you need to get him to a doctor or a hospital right away so that he can A, start that medical treatment, and B, start to get that documented so that there's not going to be any argument later on down the road that, hey, this wasn't caused by the crash.
And Dan, the other thing is it's important that people understand that it's not too early to get a lawyer in these cases. If you think it's going to be an injury claim, it's probably a better idea to get a lawyer now than wait, because what's happening while you're waiting is the insurance company is getting their lawyers and their investigators together to investigate the claim against you. Mm-hmm. So, you know, while I tell people, hey, if you just got a little bruise and you're fine, no, you don't need a lawyer for that. But if you've got an injury like you're talking about with her son who's got glass and needs all that taken out, yes, they probably need to get a lawyer as soon as possible.
Okay. Dan, I think you had another question for the Moore Law Connection. Is that right?
We do. This question is from David. He says, my neighbor's tree fell on my fence. Are they responsible for any of the repair cost? The answer generally is no. In most of those situations, you submit that claim to your homeowner's insurance and they would provide the compensation for you to repair your fence. Generally speaking, somebody whose tree that's on their property falls on your property and damages your fence or something else, they're not going to be responsible for that unless they knew the tree was rotten or was leaning or had some sort of obvious defect to it that would indicate that it was about ready to fall. Otherwise, it's considered an act of God. Now, if you have a question, go to the Fox19 website, which is fox19.com. Click on the More Law button at the top of the page. Fill out the Send Us Your Questions form, and then you can click Submit. We'll take a look at your question and do our best to answer it. Right now, we're going to go to break, and we'll be back with some more calls after this.